What's up, everybody? I hope you guys are doing wonderful. Today, I want to talk about credit and everything that goes into it because I realize that there's a lot of people who really aren't informed on what makes up your credit score and what impacts it and things like that. So I want to go over some of that today. Hopefully, you guys are going to find this really informational and helpful, and you could use some of this to help make better decisions in the future to where it could help your credit score go up and what makes it go down. So yeah, stay with me here and I'm gonna go over everything and hopefully you'll be a credit expert at the end. No, I'm just kidding, because I'm not even one, but it's stuff I've learned over the years and through experience. So I think I have some insight on what could help you guys. Okay, so when it comes to your credit score, there are 5 components that make up what your credit score is. And the first is going to be your payment history. And that pretty much is, have you been making your payments on time? Any late payments on your credit report? All of that gets factored in, and that makes up 35% of your credit score. So it's the most important factor. And next is going to be your credit utilization, and that means the amount of credit that you're currently using compared to how much is actually available to you, and that makes up 30%. Also, number 3 is credit age, and that's 15% of your credit score, and pretty much what that is it's how long you've had open credit is basically what goes into that. Next is going to be new credit accounts, and that goes 10% into what your credit score is, and that's pretty much explanatory. It's new credit accounts that you open, so kind of like inquiries and things like that. And lastly, it's going to be your credit mix, and that's also 10%. So that's going to factor in if you have a different mixture of types of loans. Like, do you have student loans? Do you have auto loans? Do you have mortgages? Do you have some, all, none, things like that? So those are the things that are all compiled together, and that's what makes up your credit score. And when it comes to credit reporting, most lenders and financial institutions report to 3 different bureaus. And those bureaus, you should be pretty familiar with them, but if not, they're Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Those are the top 3, and most lenders do report every 30 days at the end of the month. Depending on where you're looking at your score, sometimes they're separated between what each bureau is reporting. So that's why you may see sometimes that one bureau has a higher score, another has a lower. There are some times where some lenders or institutions don't report to all 3. So that might be why you see a variation of the credit score. Now, the first thing I want to get into is what I mentioned before, which is the most important factor in your credit score, which is the payment history. Now, payment history includes 2 types of accounts. One is revolving accounts, and that's going to be credit cards, store cards, things like that, because it revolves. I guess you could kind of say it's never ending credit because they give it to you. If you use it, you pay it off. Okay, it's still there. So it kind of is revolving like a circle until you close the account, basically. The next is an installment account, which is going to include like your mortgage, auto loans, student loans, because what goes into those is, of course, you're paying those in installments. Eventually, after paying however many installments are in your contract for what's a part of your term, where when you make that final payment, there's no more loan. So that's why it's called installments, because you're going to be paying that credit down in installments. When it comes to both types of accounts, most of them report every 30 days, as I mentioned, at the end of the month. If they don't receive a payment within 30 days or more, what's going to happen is that they're going to report that result to the bureaus as a missed or a late payment. and that's going to be added to your credit score, which of course will have it drop a little bit. Now, depending on what your score is now, it could have like a major impact. It normally does, from what I've come to find. So that's why you really don't want to have any missed payments on your record, because it's the hardest thing to bounce back from. But sometimes if you have one missed payment or late payment over time and don't have any more again, sometimes it's easier to bounce back from. It does take time, but what'll happen is if it starts to become a habit, then the more late payments, the more it's going to take for you to get your credit score back on track, because it all depends on the amount of payments that account has had up to now, and then how many late payments have been reported within that same account. Now, if you have multiple accounts or loans, then they're going to compile all of that data. So if you have 2 student loans and 2 credit cards, and on all 4 accounts you have late payments, then it's going to be really hard to bounce back from, because you're going to have positive payment history on all of those accounts, to where it's going to start helping to bring your credit score up. And that's why it's the biggest factor in your credit score, is because it's the hardest to bounce back from. That's why it's of utmost importance to pay on time, even if you have to consult with your lender to see if there's anything you could do, like a payment arrangement or anything like that, just to see, because you want to avoid it at all costs if you can. Things happen. Sometimes you're just not able to make any type of payment on any of these accounts. So that's why you just have to do what you can. If you've fallen behind in making payments on any type of account, the lender will continue to report late payments until that account is brought back up to current. Now, even by bringing your account current, that doesn't mean that it's going to reflect on your credit score, because once that late payment is made and it's reported, there's pretty much nothing you can do. Now, you can always dispute it. You can always contact the bureaus and your lender if there's honestly a mistake. You made your payment on time, there should be no reason for you to be marked as having a late payment. Sometimes they're able to go back in and reverse that if it truly was an error on one of their ends in reporting that. But if you in fact did make a late payment or was behind for a while, then they won't be able to update the reporting to where those won't be reflected. So once it happens, it happens. But if it was a mistake and you know you made your payment on time and weren't late, then I always suggest disputing it, especially with everything that's going on right now. I'm sure there's a lot of people finding it hard to keep their heads above water and manage their finances. Now, for any reason that you're falling behind, whether it's due to not working right now or an unexpected expense, if the lender does report a late payment, you unfortunately can't call them and say, hey, I missed the last month payment because I had my roof to repair, or there was an accident to where I had to cover my car expense. They heed what you're saying, but they understand completely what you're going through, and we wish that we can help. But when it comes to a late payment is a late payment, essentially. It sucks, but when it comes to finance and the finance industry, it's kind of sad to say, but lenders don't care. We care, but on a late payment standpoint, they don't. So that's why it's critical to just make sure you always have a savings just in case something ever does happen, because it happens to all of us. We have things that come up that we have no choice but to take care of, to where we gotta kind of rearrange other finances. And it's a harsh reality, but we just have to do the best we can to try to avoid them. Now, sometimes if you have an account that has previously gone to collections, or it's just a really old account that's been on your credit report for years, there are cases in which you can dispute to have that removed, because again, I'm not a credit expert, but there are I guess, laws or rules to where if something is on your credit report for an extended amount of time, I guess it's the wrong term, but it's kind of like a statute of limitations type thing. If it's that old, they shouldn't be able to still report anymore. But again, you want to check with that particular company, and you may also want to take into consideration what type of account it is. So just throwing that out there, because I personally did that on a really old account, and I was able to get it disputed and it was taken off of my credit report. So I always advise, it really doesn't hurt or cost you anything to dispute it. So I always say, hey, give it a try, but just have realistic expectations. Don't think of it as, oh, I'm disputing it, so they have to take it off. There's contractual things, legal things that also have to be taken into consideration. But I always like to give that as a piece of advice for people to try. Like me, I was young and dumb. I didn't take proper responsibility of paying my finances, like my student loans back in the day. So one went to collections. Try. Try and see how it goes. It won't hurt. Now, the best advice I could give to anyone that's looking to improve their payment history is to continue making your payments on time. Now, it's going to take a long time for that to happen, depending on how many missed payments you've had on your credit accounts. Now, if it's one, sometimes you're able to do it within a few months, but if it's multiple and it spans across different accounts, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it's gonna take a long time. It's so difficult to bounce back from those missed payments, or late payments, I should say. So rule of thumb is just to continue making your payments on time. And as you go forward, those payments are gonna have a lesser impact over time, because what's gonna happen is that you're gonna improve the amount of on-time payments that you have. Okay, so let's say you have a few accounts, and across all of those accounts, you have 120 possible payments. Like if you count each and every month you've been in each of your accounts, it comes up to 120 payments. And across all of those accounts, you missed 3 payments somewhere to where it was counted as a late payment. Now, what'll happen is over time, that's going to decrease, because the amount of possible payments is going to also increase to where it's a lesser impact. Now, that 117, because 120 minus 3 missed or late payments is 117. So if you divide 117 into 120, it's 97.5%. So that'll be what your payment history is. That's going to be the percentage. And when it comes to the payment history, there's a high threshold to what's considered good and what's considered bad. I think anything under 98% is considered bad. I know that's so not fair, but 100% is excellent. And 99%, and I think 98 and 99% is considered, you'd be in the yellow or fair, but anything below that, it's considered bad. So that's why it's so hard to come back from. One missed payment, your credit goes down 50 points. But on-time payments, it goes up 1 point. Totally not fair. Another reason why payment history is so important is because this is the main thing that lenders are going to look at when it comes to extending you a line of credit of some sort. Because if they see your payment history percentage is like very low, they're gonna think of you as a risky customer, as somebody that's not gonna have a high probability of paying them on time. It makes it really difficult to get any sort of credit when it's so low. And that's why it makes up so much and impacts it a lot, because that's the number one thing that everybody's gonna look at when they pull your credit. Next is credit utilization or credit usage. Now, for this in particular, you'll wanna keep your credit utilization below 30%, because once you start to get above 30%, what's going to happen is if a lender pulls your credit report, they're going to see if your utilization percentage is anything above 30. They're going to assume, hey, this person has a lot of accounts and we don't know if they're going to be able to manage another payment with us. So that's why they also look into that, because it's another item that they're able to look at as a way for them to ensure that you're going to pay them back for the credit they're looking to extend you. And that's why it's the second biggest thing, because they kind of go hand in hand with each other, payment history and credit utilization. Because if you're utilizing too much credit, you're having to pay too many people, and when you are not paying all the people you already have to pay, then why am I as a lender gonna give you another account to have to pay for when you don't even have enough to pay for the accounts you already have? So that's kind of what goes through the minds of a lender when they're looking at you as a possible person to lend or extend credit to. They take into consideration whatever your current balance is on all of those accounts, and it adds it up together. And what it'll also do is it'll take your, especially on your credit card accounts, it'll take into consideration also what your credit limit is. Example of how it's calculated: let's say if you have $10,000 of available credit across every account that you have, and you're currently using $2,500 of that available credit, that means you're using 25% of your available credit. Now, if you up that to 5,000, it means you're using 50%. So see how that makes a big difference? 25 is under that threshold of 30%, so you would be okay with that. But once you get to 50, that's probably when you would see a noticeable difference in what your credit score is. When you make payments on your credit card accounts or any type of loan account, as soon as that payment posts to that particular account, you notice that your credit score doesn't change. The reason for that is because lenders don't report until the end of the month every 30 days. So that's why you may notice that your credit score always updates around the first or second week of the month, because the bureaus have reported and updated that information on their websites from what they got from those lenders. So when you make a payment on the 17th, you're like, oh, why didn't my credit score go up? That's because bureaus haven't gotten that information yet. The lender wants to make sure that you don't plan on making any other payments, because they don't want to miss that in their reporting. So that's why they wait to the end of the month, because they've compiled all of the data from the past 1 month of, I guess, payment history. And once they see one payment, they'll report that to the bureaus. Like, if, let's say, if you decide to make an additional payment later on in the month, like on the 29th, then it's possible that payment got in just on time to where you'll see 2 payments update on your next credit update. What that'll do is that should help your utilization to go down, and usually, depending on how much that payment was, it should allow your credit score to go up a point or two. Credit age shows lenders how long you've actually been handling credit. And typically, the older the credit age, the more time you have experience handling and maintaining the account. Now, that's what lenders really want to see is, do you have a long time of making payments on different accounts? Now, what's also going to happen is, as you start to get new credit accounts, whether it be any type of loan or a credit card, that's going to start to reduce your average credit age, because you're getting newer accounts added to your credit file. So you want to typically avoid doing that, because once your age reduces, it's going to kind of show lenders, because if it's not on your report, when a lender pulls it, it didn't happen. Is kind of the best way to put it. So if you have a credit age of like 2 or 3 years, it's gonna reflect to the lender as, hey, does she have experience handling accounts with making payments for like a longer period of time? Gonna think to themselves, they've never have the experience in making payments every month. So they're going to take that as a warning sign. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a risk to them because it's not a high factor in your credit score, but it's something that they look at. Since every account does reduce your credit age, that also means for you that you don't want to frequently open a whole bunch of loans and credit card accounts, because each time you do so, the lower and lower your credit age is going to drop, and it will also apply to your account as multiple inquiries as well. So you want to avoid doing that because it's going to also show lenders that you are needing multiple accounts to be able to manage your finances, and if they get the feeling that you're being overextended, it might not be the best thing to show that you're able to handle an additional line of credit. It's always good to keep the oldest account in your credit history open if you can. When it comes to a credit card, I would advise keeping it open if you can, because credit cards can stay open forever as long as they're active. That's why I'm a huge proponent of, if you don't want to use credit, just to charge something simple on it, like go get Starbucks or put gas on it every once in a while, just to keep it open, because I do think credit card companies will shut down an account if they don't see any activity on it for a certain period of time. As time goes forward, that credit age is going to increase. Now, when it comes to loans, of course, that will at some point have to end because you're going to pay off the loan at some point. So when that happens, it means your credit age will have no choice but to reduce. But if you have other accounts withstanding on your credit report still, what'll happen is those will kind of make up for it. It'll reduce, but it won't drop down so low if the accounts have been open long enough. Even if that account does close, it still should ultimately help your score go up, even though it reduces your credit age. So, and closed account, credit age, closed account is going to definitely weigh a lot higher. So don't worry about that aspect too much, but keep your older credit card accounts open and you should be good. Now, for new credit accounts, I've kind of gone over some of the points of it in previous sections, but you don't want to go and open a whole bunch of new accounts all at one time, because that's going to count as inquiries, and it's again going to show that you may not be financially ready to take on a new line of credit. So if you do that often enough, like when it comes to something like a mortgage or a car loan, if they see all of that on your credit report, then they may think of you as a risky customer, and you'll either have a really high rate on the loan or they may just straight up deny you. So just avoid doing that if you can. And when it comes to credit mix, I wasn't able to actually find a lot of information about why credit mix is like a factor in your credit score, but the little that I was able to find out is that I guess lenders want to see that you're able to manage different types of accounts, like an open credit card, a mortgage, and a student loan, car loan. I wasn't able to find out really much more than that. So it's important, but not really. I wouldn't take this super seriously. Because I mean, if you just have student loans on your account but no car loan or mortgage, then I wouldn't feel the urgent need to be like, oh, I need to go get a new car because it's going to make my credit score go up. No, don't think of it that way. Definitely focus on your payment history and your utilization, since those are the top two. Now, there are a couple of other things that are also taken into consideration and factored into your credit score, and those things are derogatory marks and hard inquiries. Now, when it comes to derogatory marks, these are along the same lines of payment history, because with derogatory marks, these things could stay on your credit report for 7 to 10 years and cause a huge mess for you being able to get your credit score to come up. But I guess the silver lining with this is that, and I mentioned it earlier, these types of accounts are the ones you can submit disputes for to see if you could get them removed off of your credit report for the age of the account. Because if it's like 10 years old and this is still on your account, for example, there's a good chance that due to the age of it, it could just be taken and removed off of your credit reporting altogether, which in turn should be able to help you get your credit score and help it to go up. Now, these type of accounts that usually will leave derogatory marks are accounts that go to collections, bankruptcies, and things like tax liens, and there's a whole bunch of other things I think as well. Now, hard inquiries come from credit applications. So when you try to get any type of loan or open up a credit card sometimes, all of those times a lender looks into your credit. That is what a hard inquiry is. And when they do that, it stands on your credit report. Now, the good part about this is that it's not as much of an impact like a derogatory mark. They tend to stay on your credit report for about 1 to 2 years. If there's any instance to where you have multiple inquiries at once, like let's say you went to multiple car dealerships, or if you went to one car dealership and they ran your credit with multiple lenders, then usually if that's all done within a 30-day time frame, then they most of the time group together as one. So it's not multiple dings on your report. It'll count just as one and not impact you so much. So pretty much that's everything. Those are all of the different things that go into what makes up your credit score. I really hope that I was able to give you guys some more information and I was able to educate y'all on some of this stuff. I know most of this stuff, we all have Credit Karma these days, and that's really where I got all of this from. So you could always go in and look at your personal information yourself and see what you can do, because I had no choice but to learn about some of this stuff because, like I mentioned, I had an account that went to collections. So I kind of had to know what it takes to kind of help bring up your score. And I've personally done like a lot of the things I just mentioned to help bring my personal credit score back on track, and it's helped. I'm still a work in progress. Like, I'm not even where I want to be, and it's been years. So it's not going to be something that's going to happen overnight. You're going to have to put in the work and pay everything on time and make sure you keep your accounts up to date and keep it current, because one wrong move and that's it. No, I'm just kidding, but not really. But yeah, one wrong move and it can really hurt and take a long time to come back from. But yeah, if you follow these steps and just have the patience, I really think it's going to work out for you guys tremendously. Just don't give up and hang in there. It will happen for you. It just takes forever, but a long time. So just keep at it. But yeah, if there's any other questions you guys had about any of the sections, definitely leave a comment and I'd be happy to answer it for you. And if you guys did find this helpful, go ahead and give me a like on this video and don't forget to subscribe. You guys could always find me on Instagram and Snapchat, both at Megan Victor, MEGHANVICTOR. So yeah, that's where I be at. Yeah. I hope to see you guys in the next video, and I will see y'all then. Bye.